Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be romantic interest can't be negotiated or complained into existence. Well, this particular email is from a guy who's 51 years old, and he was just referred to me. He says by somebody who I had on my podcast recently. So I don't know who that was, but thanks for the referral regardless. But what's interesting is, the old saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, it doesn't apply here because this guy's 51. And what he's realized after going through my book 3% Man the first time is he's often made a lot of mistakes that basically end up causing him. He says typically what happens is women start to back away and then he turns into a jack in the box. They slowly lose interest and then dip out of his life. And so he's now recognizing this has been a pattern that's been going on his whole life. And even at 51, he's realizing how often that has turned off women that he was dating that he really liked. So like I said, you're never too old to become the person you were meant to be. And even at 51 years old, I got clients that are in their 70s that are just learning this stuff for the first time, and they're elated that they're learning it. So it's never too late to become the person you were meant to be. So let's go through his email because he brings up some good points and makes a lot of the mistakes that most guys that don't know any better tend to make. And so being aware of those kinds of mistakes and avoiding displaying that behavior is a big part of what you need to turn things around, so are no longer talking women out of liking you who are already predisposed to like you. Because as I talk about in the book, attraction is not a choice. Mother Nature has already handled that part of the equation for us. So he says, "Hi, Coach Corey. I'm a 51-year-old man in great shape. I make decent money, and I have had one of my top 3 worst weeks in my 51 years of living. I lost my current girlfriend overnight. I lost my job of the last 2 years. And I had a new cell phone that I paid for in cash. And he had AC, I guess his AC in his car broke as well." He says, "It's all you can do is laugh." So I guess that means he must have lost his brand new cell phone that he got too. No job, no girl, lost the cell phone, and the AC in his car shit the bed apparently. So that qualifies as one of the top 3 worst weeks of his life. So no matter where you are or how bad things are going or appear to be going, there's always somebody that's got it way worse than you. I mean, you could be in Russia or Ukraine right now and being sent to fight in a war that you probably wouldn't have wanted anything to do with. So no matter where you are, there's always somebody that's got it worse than you. Helps you put things into perspective. He says, "I came across your info from the young man who you recently had on. I've done my fair share of reading other books on pickup and such, but none of them ever discussed how the female brain is wired like you do. I just listened to 3% Man at 2 speed, like you suggested, and it was the words I needed to hear. I'm the guy who reacts with negative words, ridiculing and insulting her through text because, like you said, I'm the jack in the box. And it happens anytime and every time she starts pulling back, or if she doesn't text me back first or back in a timely manner." So that tells me his mindset is one of deep down, he doesn't feel like he deserves the love that he wants. And so he's predisposed to automatically assume and believe that the woman he loves is just simply not going to love him back. And so therefore he tries to force things. That's where the anger comes from, because anger, behind fear is always anger. Or behind anger is always fear, I should say. What's he afraid of? He's afraid of not getting what he wants. This is understandable, but if you don't understand this tape that's playing around in your head all the time, and like in this case, he turns into a jack in the box, he tends to get upset, he tends to get angry. In essence, he thinks incorrectly that he can talk women into liking them. He can complain them into being interested in him. If he just complains he doesn't get the love that he wants, then they'll just give it to him. In some cases, this may have worked in the past in a relationship, but as you'll see, more often than not, it usually leads to what started out as a promising relationship to go sideways. Because women are like cats, and always invariably at some point, especially when they start to sense weakness, their interest drops, and they tend to back away a little bit and test more and become a little more difficult and things of that nature just to see how you react. And it's obvious, as he admits, he's been a jack in the box, and he didn't realize how and why that was such a turnoff to women. So he says the last couple of weeks, she started to pull back and send one word and one sentence text while I was writing short stories. Yeah, that's another thing you want to pay attention to, is that if you're writing 2 or 3 sentences and the girl you're texting with is sending 3 or 4 words back, it's pretty obvious that you're more into the conversation than she is. You're putting more effort than she is, and you want to match and mirror the actions of the other person. So as a woman backs away and she starts taking her time to reply, you take a little bit longer to reply than she's taking. If she sends, her text becomes short and you're sending 3 or 4 sentences and she's sending 1 sentence back, then send 3 or 4 words back and just match and mirror that. But most guys, just like he said, that don't realize what's going on is they just notice that she's not making the same effort, and complaining is often how the average guy deals with this. But the reality is it's all about how she feels. If she feels it, she wants to interact with you more. And if she's not feeling it for whatever reason, she wants to interact with you less. You shouldn't take it personally. You should just look at it as indicative of what her current level of emotional interest is in you and respond accordingly. He says the first couple of months were great, and the last couple of months played out like you said it was or would, because I began to question her. I texted long paragraphs, and without a doubt, we were at more than 50% on the polarity scale, and then it played out like you said it would. In other words, I talk about in the book that a man should never do more than 20 to 30% of the pursuing. And especially once it goes beyond 50%, at some point he's going to get friend zoned, because all that does is elicit platonic feelings in the woman towards you. And if you're making her feel platonic feelings instead of romantic feelings, well, her pussy's going to become drier than the Sahara Desert, and she's not going to want to sleep with you anymore. He says it's a hard pill to swallow, knowing your supposed girlfriend decided in a 5-minute period to cancel on her date and go spend the next 2 days with another guy. Well, it's not that she decided all this in 5 minutes. It's that her interest was dropping. You obviously noticed it was dropping, but you didn't know what to do to turn it around, and unfortunately until it was too late. And so you're looking at it as 5 minutes to cancel your date and then go spend 2 days with another guy. But really, more than likely, what women typically do is they'll pick a fight that's really innocuous, and the guy, unfortunately, most guys after the fight has happened, they're focused on why she broke up with him, which is the excuses, this little innocuous, oh, if I'd have just not done that, we'd still be together. It's like, no, that was the excuse. Elvis had already left the building. Her interest had already dropped, and the fact that she had another guy that she spent 2 days with is that she was already lining this dude up before she pulled the plug in your relationship. That's the harsh reality. And unfortunately, a large majority of women will behave that way. They're not going to break it off, and then take some time to heal, and then get back in the dating market. So he says, rinse, recycle, repeat is probably the best way to describe my relationships, because I burn through an average of 2 entry-level relationships in under 6 months per year. So this happens about twice a year. He gets a few months, 4 to 5 months max, and it always ends the same way. The women start out really highly interested in him, but he talks them out of liking him because he's displaying a lot of really unattractive behavior that up until recently he had no idea it was totally unattractive. And so when you clean that stuff up, you go from talking women out of liking you to allowing them to fall hopelessly head over heels in love with you. Because love is allowing, after all. And as the late, great Thich Nhat Hanh said, you must love in such a way that the person you love feels free. He says, and I've had 4 serious relationships that were less than 4 years, and I can honestly say I still have a great relationship with all of my exes. Recently, I was dating a 34-year-old woman for the last 4 months, and we are at the end stage right now on the polarity scale. I'm doing 95% of the pursuing, and she's at 5%, and it sucks. He says, it's the first person in a while that I really liked being around. Yeah, you can imagine being 51 years old and having this pretty much happen his whole entire life and not understanding why it happens or has happened. That's going to suck. But at least now that you become aware of it, you have the opportunity to change your behavior. She went from applying to the state of Florida to being approved to take the test for her cosmetology license to now she's not taking the test. I don't know if that means she was moving here or they're long distance, but actually, I guess they were. He says that they're 50 miles apart. So if she was, hey, I'm going to move to Florida and I'm going to get my cosmetology license and this is going to be great, and then all of a sudden she's not even taking her test, again, that's indicative of the fact that her interest has gone south. And the reason for taking it is no longer there, which was you. So he says, I know you said to not text, but it's hard not to do. I guess one good thing is she's more than 50 miles away, so we really only get to spend 1 or 2 days together. Well, you left out the fact that she blew you off to go hang out with some other guy, so she's obviously not your girlfriend anymore. And on top of that, you can't just ignore the fact that she lined up your replacement when you were supposedly in a relationship with her. That's very disloyal behavior. And if you're looking for exclusivity and monogamy and the woman to respect your relationship, it's not going to happen when a girl's lining up your replacement and giving you the impression that you're still together. That's just pretty ratchet behavior. And that's typically the actions of somebody who's very insecure, oftentimes can be narcissistic, and they don't feel any remorse, but they're too insecure to just break up with you and then go it alone until they find somebody else. This way, when they know they're probably not going to stick around, they start putting the feelers out, they invite attention from other men who are already interested, and then break a date off with you, and as you said, she spends 2 days with some other dude. So I wouldn't be in such a rush to give her another chance, because it sounds like she didn't really have much integrity anyways. So he says, so I wanted to tell you thank you for writing this book, and one day when I get my cash flow back, I will book a phone session with you. Well, until that time, I implore you to read 3% Man 10 to 15 times. And if you read, just like he mentioned, if you listen to the audiobook on 2-speed, you can get through it in under 4 hours. And ideally, you want to be following along with a digital or a physical copy. Because like this guy's biggest issue is he finds plenty of women that like him, that are interested in him. But because he acts like a jack-in-the-box and he's cares too much, he's more into them than they are into him, he doesn't realize that he's constantly chasing women right out of his life that already like him just because of his behavior. And so therefore, by going through the book a number of times as quickly as possible, he can spot all the unattractive behavior that he's displayed in the past and stop blowing up and turning into a jack-in-the-box. And if he applies what's in the book, the women will fall in love instead of always be looking for the exits only a few months into dating. So if you got a question or challenge and you'd like to get my help, go to understandingrelationships.com, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and book a coaching session with yours truly. Until next time, I will talk to you soon.